The environment has never been just scenery at the back of the stage of human history. It has always shaped history, whether we have recognized it or not. Environmental history offers some important lessons for today. One of them is, of course, that people are quite capable of damaging the environment around them in ways that threaten both human survival and the well-being of other species. And this is a pattern that has a longer history than many of us realize. So to some extent that can be a dispiriting finding. But on the other hand, environmental history has shown us that when people have recognized those problems, they have proved capable of finding ways to solve them. So I think the field is both a cautionary field in that it tells us what can go wrong, but also a hopeful field that shows us that we have the capacity as a species to take account of what we're doing and, if necessary, change course. All historical fields are interested in the way that people have interacted with each other over time. Environmental historians, in addition, are interested in how people have interacted with the rest of the world, what we usually call nature. This enables environmental historians to offer some new insights into some well-studied events. I can offer examples from two of the series editors. Alfred Crosby was one of the initial editors, and he wrote a very influential book talking about how organisms, including diseases and domestic animals, helped Europeans conquer much of the world during the age of imperialism. More recently, my co-editor, John McNeil, wrote an influential book about the role of insect-borne diseases in the Caribbean and the impact that it had both on conquest of the Caribbean and the contests between the imperial powers there. As an example, I sometimes show my students, my undergraduate students, a photo of the United States at night from a satellite. And what you can see is that the eastern half of the country is lit up brightly with lights. The west coast is, and the space between the coast and the center of the country is largely dark with a few dots for major cities such as Denver and Salt Lake City. So I ask my students why that is, and often they think it is because of something like where the business opportunities are, which are true, but that pattern is the result of the impact of rainfall on settlement of the United States. The area that is dark is an area that is dry, and that limited the number of people who could settle in those regions historically. So today, concentration of American populations reflects this impact of nature on the history of the United States. We as environmental historians are interested both in how people have shaped the natural world and in ways in which the natural world has shaped human experience. Evolution simply means change in traits of populations. We often think of this as something that happens in the wild. We think of Darwinian natural selection, and we often think of areas such as the Galapagos Islands that Darwin famously visited and helped him come to his topic of study of evolution. But evolution happens all around us. It happens in the barnyards of England, which Darwin realized when he came back from the Galapagos to study it. So the impact of people on the evolution of other species is both common and important. It's common because it happens all the time, all around us. And it's important because it has provided the foundation for most of what historians study. The commonness I can illustrate with a couple examples from everyday life. If you have a pet dog or recognize breeds of dogs, you are seeing the impact of human effects on the evolution of another species. All dogs belong to the same species. They are all domesticated wolves. But obviously a Chihuahua is very different from a Great Dane because of human actions. So that's an ordinary part of life. The traits of Chihuahuas and Great Danes haven't remade history on a grand scale, but other things that people have done in affecting traits of other species have. For example, Most of what historians study dates from the invention of writing. Writing depended on the development of settled urban societies and specialized trades, including scribes who could invent writing. Settled urban societies were the result of the agricultural revolution, which generated an agricultural surplus, a food surplus, that could feed people in cities beyond the needs of the farmers who raised the food. The agricultural revolution was a product of domestication. Domestication was a process in which people and other species co-evolved in ways that made domestication feasible. That is, domestic plants and animals are modified versions of wild plants and animals. So that's an example of how people have shaped the evolution of non-human populations. Think of wheat, rice, potatoes, horses, cows, pigs, chickens, beans, lettuce, spinach, almost everything that we eat, and historically most of the muscle power, the draft power of animals that we depended on for power throughout history is a byproduct of anthropogenic evolution. So that's an example of a very deep, powerful, world-changing effect of this process, but one that's largely hidden to history because it happened a long time ago, and it's a part of history that isn't heavily studied today, but which nevertheless profoundly shapes the world around us today. Looking for books that are going to shape the field and even change the field of environmental history. The first question is always, is the topic relevant to the series? Does it deal broadly with the way that people have interacted with the rest of nature as well as people? If it meets that threshold, then I'm looking for books that are novel, significant, and well written.